Okay, so I hope everybody had a chance to take a little break, and that hopefully you are back now. I was hoping, actually, Will, I don't know if you're back from your break. Are you still there?
Some of us are, yes.
What was that, Graciela?
Yes.
Some of you are back. Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
I'm not sure for how long though. I really wanted to stay to the end, but I'm preparing my talk for the ETU, so that shouldn't be told in open mic anyway. But
That's fine. We're recording this as well, and this will also be posted to the YouTube channel. And then if there's other things that we want to talk about, we can discuss them later as well. I understand. In any case, I guess I'll get going. I have a little bit of a presentation that I wanted to give, but I think anyone that's out there listening shouldn't think of this really as a presentation, because it's mostly updates about what we've been working on. It's some updates on some new tools that we've been developing in order to try to support people, contributing data and helping others contribute data, and then also like doing data validation, in particular through the Neotoma side of what we're working on for the African pollen database. There's going to be a part at the end where I'm going to ask for feedback for anything that kind of pops up in your mind or that you think might be useful at the end. But as I have on my slide, please interrupt me at any point as I go through these slides with questions or comments. Any of that is fine. You can use the raise hand function that's on the participants tab of Zoom, or you can just unmute and start speaking, or put something in the chat. That's all of that is acceptable. So what I'm basically going to do is the purpose of this meeting, just to sort of think a little bit about why I wanted to have this meeting, is that it's been a while now since the African paleoecological community and then the people that have been sort of involved in the last few years in the APD have connected, and a lot of that is because of COVID. Our data steward training that Eric led, that we've talked about a bunch of times already during this session, was in late January, ended in early February 2020, so right before the world shut down. And so it's been, I think, really difficult to connect over the last year, and I wanted to use this as an opportunity to reconnect with everybody, let everybody know what's going on, and also give you a sense of like what we would like in terms of engagement, how we could imagine people being engaged and involved. And also get feedback from you and how we can support you. So that's kind of the purpose of this meeting. I'll give you a little bit of background on the African pollen database in case you are sort of new to the community. Anne-Marie also, who has, her work was really seminal for the founding of the African pollen database, gave a really nice background at the beginning of this session, so I won't go into a ton of detail about that. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what's in the works, ways to get involved. Spoiler alert, there are lots of ways to get involved. There's no way too small to get involved. And then I'll talk about some data steward resources and refreshers that I've been putting together as I've been training new students and as I've been connecting with other data stewards that, for whom it's been a little while. It's been a tough year. So, I've had people apologize to me about not being more involved. Please don't apologize. Any way that you can be involved is amazing. And if it's been a while since you've been able to, say, work on, data uploads to Neotoma or data contributions, that's completely fine. So just want to say that going forward, and ask questions during the talk, and there also will be plenty of time after. So I just basically took this background slide from from a previous talk that Anne-Marie gave, but I think it's kind of similar to one that she used in her talk today as well. The African pollen database was, first really the principles and the basis for the APD was first started in 1996, and Anne-Marie showed this photo from Bierville, France, that has, Eric as well as a lot of the other people that were integral to the founding of the database in it. It existed from about that point in 1996 to 2007. There were a lot of different parts of that database, and it was really an amazing resource. But then APD activities lapsed in 2007, mostly because of funding issues. And now it hasn't been possible to integrate new data since that point. And a lot of the cool tools that were a part of that site have now become obsolete. And so we are now working to try to relaunch the African pollen database as a part of this project that was mentioned by Anne-Marie earlier, funded through the Belmont Forum. The title of the project is Abrupt Change in Climate and Ecosystems. Where are the tipping points? That project started in 2019. It is ongoing right now, technically set to end in this summer, but we are likely to have at least a year's extension on that. And the goal of that project is, to, as I said, relaunch the African pollen database as a standalone site that had all of these amazing tools that were developed by Anne-Marie and other colleagues, including a photo search tool, essentially like a pollen key that was, sort of searchable online. All of the modern and fossil pollen data sets that were hosted on there that also had visualizations that you could use, and the enormous work in African pollen nomenclature that was done by Anne-Marie and Annie Benson. And then another prong of that is then to have the APD become a constituent database within Neotoma, and then also be able to do some really cool science with that data as well. So activities up until this point, we had 2 workshops that have been talked about. There is web development that has been ongoing, and I'll talk a little bit about the status of that. And Marie also talked a little bit about that. We have been ongoing trying to acquire data and validate data, and then continued development and updates of that APD taxonomy or nomenclature that I mentioned before. And then we also have a special issue of Paleoecology of Africa that we'll talk about in a moment. He'll give you a couple of details about that. Just a few more details about some of these workshops in order to give anyone that wasn't involved in them a sense of sort of like what is the status of what has been done so far. The first workshop was in Bondy outside of Paris in October 2019 with the purpose of reconnecting the African paleoecological community and then establishing, discussing and talking about protocols and a timeline for the relaunch of the African pollen database. And so we had a lot of people attend that workshop. It was a really great discussion. And so there were a lot of, really important outcomes from that, including discussions of the data model for the relationship between APD and Neotoma, as well as within themselves. Talking about the structure of the database, the nomenclature, age models, all sorts of discussions along those lines. Importantly, we had representatives from different regions within Africa inventory data sets. So data sets that they recognize as already being within the African pollen database, as well as those that had been produced since 2007 or that did not for some reason exist within the APD. And so that inventory resulted in a total of 288 sites that were within APD fossil sites, 1,985 modern sites, modern data sets that were within the pre-2007 APD, but then a total of 365 identified data sets not yet in the African pollen database. And if you're interested in knowing more about this, Anne-Marie mentioned this short workshop report that was published in Pages, which has this figure that shows in red the data sets that are not within the APD and have not yet been contributed. The yellow are data sets that are not yet within APD, but that we do actually have contributed already. And then the green is just what existed prior to 2007. So you can see that data coverage is really progressing pretty amazingly in some regions within Africa. And we also at this workshop established an APD council, which I have sort of like a preliminary listing of that APD council down here, which has regional representatives, will have at-large representatives, and also is comprised of the data stewards as well. And so that we're that council sort of sets the policies and priorities. It develops and discusses agreements between like other databases and stuff like that for putting data in there. And so we've been planning on having a meeting for a while, but again, because of COVID, things got a little bit delayed. And so a meeting of that council is going to be announced soon, likely late in 2021 is when you should kind of be thinking that might happen. And then, we've talked a lot about this Amsterdam workshop, which Will Gosling hosted and Eric led, that was in January 2020, right before COVID. The purpose of that was for training people working in African paleoecology for data validation and upload of data sets to Neotoma. The outcome of that is that Eric trained 14 new data stewards who are all shown in this photo, and I've listed their names there. And many of them are with us today and gave talks in this session. And we do have a few new people who have joined since then, or students that are sort of training under data stewards who are not listed here. But if you're interested in knowing who these people are, who your data stewards are, you can let me know. Okay, and then the special issue. So Will, I can turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the special issue.
Sure, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, this is, as you can see, we ended up with a bit of an epic. So out of one of the things that we wanted to do off the back of the Amsterdam meeting and the meeting in France was to find a mechanism where we could mobilize data sets and get data sets together. And this spiraled a little bit out of control from an initial idea of like publishing some data papers to this 24 chapter volume, which is currently with the publishers. We're excitedly waiting for the proofs, which Louis Scott, Anne-Marie Lazine, and myself have edited over the last 12 months or so, which is actually a pretty fast turnaround for a book. I think it includes a number of nice short data papers where the idea is that this mobilizes data, both ancient paleo data. I'm sure Trevor Hill won't mind me highlighting that. I don't know if he's here today, but he getting some of his PhD data sets together and actually publishing those. And that was a while ago that he did his PhD, I believe, and some more recently generated data sets. So I think that's a nice contribution. But also the special issues got review papers and proper full research papers. So it's quite an epic. It will be published. It will be published open access, again in the spirit of Eric and sharing. Thanks to funding from Anne-Marie Lazine, the whole volume will be just available to download from the online thing. Will be just open access. So I think that's also quite nice. And as soon as it comes out, we'll circulate that to be available for people to look at and be involved with. The sort of the half question with that is what next? Paleoecology of Africa is edited by Jürgen Rung, and he is always looking to motivate volumes. I mean, you only need about 12 papers to make a next volume. So if people have ideas for another volume, a next volume, then I think it's a good vehicle for us to engage with, and has been very nice process to be involved with. Well, many of you who are here today have contributed major papers or to that, and so it's been a fun process to keep me busy in the lockdown. It's actually been quite nice to have a real project to work on. So that's been good. And I think that's probably all I want to say about that, other than, hopefully we see the proofs pretty soon.
So Will, I was curious too. So it's open access. Will it be on a website, or how will people get access to that?
That is a good question. And it's the first time that the publishers have ever done a book like this, open access. It was Taylor Francis. So like it's the first time that Paleoecology of Africa will be done in this way. And the way I understand it, it will just be on the website, and you'll be able to just download the PDF version. And so it'll be there as a book to download. As I understand it, it'll be a whole thing, not chapter by chapter, because because it's a book, so it'll probably be quite a hefty download. But it may be that you can. It's not clear at the moment whether you're going to be able to download individual chapters or whether you just download the whole thing and then read the chapters or print the chapters that you want. So, but yes, there will also be online supporting information for the first time for Paleoecology of Africa as well. So a lot of the data sets and the additional information will also be online via the publisher's site, as well as into the various databases. So that should provide maybe a more instant availability, because obviously when we want to upload new stuff into Neotoma, published by whom? Good question. It's Taylor Francis, Paleoecology of Africa. It's a long-running series going back to Van Zindenbacher, and it will be volume number 35. And for those, I can put I'll put in the chat. I'll put a link to the thing about it, so people can find it. Yeah. You can hear me typing now.
Great. And I can send, or you can send like a link to that as well, to the African paleoecology email list that we put together in order to advertise this session as well, in order to disseminate that if people are interested.
Sure. Yeah, no, that would be good. So that's a book about the series. Some of the books you can still purchase or get chapters from the back issues. Some of them are out of print now, but yeah, that resource is quite a nice archive of there. Is there a way to be added to the email list? Sarah, you can add people to the email list? Or
yeah, Katie is my PhD student, and I will add her to the email list. But more generally, I guess that's a great question, Katie. If there were other people in the audience that wanted to be added to that list, if you didn't get like an email from me personally about this session, let me know. I think we have a pretty exhaustive list of contact information, but it's maybe weighted towards, people who have been, more established in African paleoecology for a long time. So if you're newer to the community, definitely let me know. Okay, anything else about that, Will?
No, I'm just posting another link, and then yeah, no, I think that's, unless people have particular questions, then I think that's probably enough about the special volume.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much for talking about that, and for helping put it together. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it was
what was that, Will?
It was a bit of an epic, yeah. Editing, yeah. Well, what was supposed to be 250 pages, and I think will be just short of 500 pages in the end. So, yeah, it turned into a big job, but it was fun to do for sure.
Worth the 20-minute download, then, I think.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
Great. Okay, so I guess then, on to the, the sort of important things about what's currently going on and what are our like near-term future plans. So as I alluded to this, one of the things that's ongoing that's really important that people, in this meeting will probably be interested in is the development of the African Pollen Database standalone site, which is being led by Anne-Marie, as well as then the integration of African Pollen Database sites into Neotoma, which is kind of like a big group effort. So for the African Pollen Database standalone site, basically this is just stuff that Anne-Marie talked about in her talk, but I've kind of reiterated it here because these are tools that will be of interest to many of you. So that photo pollen atlas tool that's searchable, she said that is coming soon within the next few weeks. So that's really exciting. That's been down for a long time. And that was basically like one of the most important things that got me through my PhD. So that will be very exciting. The modern and fossil pollen data with new sites that have been contributed should be available on that site by the end of 2021, I believe, so pretty soon. And then visualization tools using that data, I think, right after that, so probably early 2022 or some roundabouts there. So, my focus has been more the Neotoma side of the African pollen database. And so I'll say probably a little bit more about that. So we, as I alluded to, we trained a lot of data stewards, 13 data stewards in January. And then things got, very distracted during COVID times. But now this summer and fall, I am in the midst of organizing a really big push for data mobilization over the summer and into the fall through sort of mostly my group at Penn State, but we are like open and welcoming of anyone else who wants to take part. Most of this is going to be happening virtually. And so anyone in the world who is interested in being involved can talk to me and be involved. And I'll talk about some of the ways that you might be involved in a second. So I have a team at Penn State who are going to be kind of the core people leading this push, including Dr. Alejandra Domick, who is also a data steward, and then Katie Horisk and Adam Benfield, who are 2 PhD students at Penn State, and then Molly McHale and David Early, who are senior undergrads who have been doing pollen research with me and who are also being trained. So that kind of, the reason I mention this is that, if you are interested in becoming a data steward, or if you have students that you're interested in training to do some of the data validation steps, we can support you on that. And I'll talk a little bit more about how later. We are also working with and talking with a couple of other groups who have sort of their own scientific, like very complementary scientific questions that they are interested in order to try to work together to prioritize certain types of data. So if you are, sort of interested and think that you might have the capacity to be involved in data mobilization, and there are certain data types, certain data set types that you might want to prioritize, that would be another thing that we could talk about. So, if there are others interested, there are a lot of ways of contributing to this. And I have a lot of updates on resources and tools that I will also talk about. So how can you get involved? Like I said, there's a lot of different ways. And so, none of the ways is too small. And first and foremost, if you have data that was published a long time ago, like it could have been before 2007, or data that was published really recently, and you want to contribute that data, that is a really great way of getting involved. And you can email me or one of the other data stewards that I showed on that data steward slide. If you want to know who those people are, again, you can contact me. Another way that you can get involved is that your networks to your colleagues who may also have data are also really important. So you could help potentially by reaching out to colleagues to help them contribute their data. That's also very valuable to us. And then the last thing is kind of the thing I've talked the most about, and that's the curating data. And so one of the things that I want to say is that, if it's been a while for you and the steps have gotten a little bit fuzzy, if you need refreshment or training in that, but you think you would be interested in doing some of that over the next year or so, please let me know. And that could be, those that are already trained as data stewards, or if you would like to be trained as a data steward, or student trainees that, you may have working in your labs that you might also want to mentor. So all of those things are available. We're going to try to, I and my group are going to try to support and facilitate all of those ways of being involved. And have, like I've mentioned this, I've alluded to this a number of times now, we have some tools that we've put together to try to help with that. But I would really like some feedback on what we have available to you and what you think you need. So I'm going to pose these questions to you before I get into actually talking about what those tools are. And so, I guess think as I'm going through this, what needs do you feel like you have that you think we could help with, and what support do you feel like we could possibly give? So keep those things in mind. So the first way I said you could be involved is through contributions. And so, you can, these slides will be made available to you if you would like them, or, you can reference the video of this meeting if you need to come back to this as like a sense of a list of like how to contribute data. But basically the minimum requirements is just the raw counts, and that can be in any form. It can be in Excel, it can be in Tilia, it could be, you know, old count sheets that might need to be digitized. So like all of those are really valuable. Even better if you have a PDF of a publication that we can get metadata from, age information, including age constraints, the age model itself, as well as the published age depth pairs for samples. And then bonus, if you have like ancillary data sets that went along with the pollen, like microcharcoal, or, you know, information for calculating concentrations like lycopodium counts or geochemical measurements, we will also take those, and those can also be associated with the pollen data. So you can email me, or you can email Anne-Marie then with that information. You know, there are a lot of advantages to contributing data. And one of the things that Chris mentioned that I think, you know, is like, I think about all the time with my data is the safety from that data entropy that he mentioned, or I wrote data attrition. But, you know, it's so easy to lose that really hard won data. But if, you know, if it's backed up on the cloud and it's on multiple databases, then it's safe. It looks really good for funders and publishers. I think that's, you know, pretty self-explanatory that that's, you know, a requirement these days. And there, you know, if you are putting together a data management plan, you know, that's something that we could probably help with as well. And another advantage is visibility. You will get a direct object identifier, a DOI, that you can use to associate with that data set, which, you know, should also make it much more visible. And then, you know, your author assigned names will be, you know, integrated into these harmonization techniques that will also have been talked about. So I think all of those are really value added things for people as researchers. And then I also mentioned, you know, if you are interested in helping by way of reaching out to colleagues who you think have a lot of data that they may want to contribute, or maybe they're a little reticent about contributing, but, you know, you think that that might be really valuable, you know, we could help you with that as well, because we have a list of contact info of, you know, a pretty exhaustive list of people involved in African paleoecology. We also have info about existing data set needs. So, you know, that's also something we can talk about. And we can also help script information about, you know, to, again, like make those arguments about like why it's beneficial to contribute and try to make the process as easy and frictionless as possible. And then, you know, for data stewards, a lot of you on this meeting are data stewards. That if they're, you know, if you're interested in sort of like re-engaging with data steward activities, like we could really use some help over the summer and into the fall. And there have been some updates that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned. And the first is that, you know, we have an APD data steward directory. That's like all of the folders within folders where data contributions are stored prior to being put into the APD. It's where we, you know, go to get taxon names in order to update taxonomy and nomenclature. That has moved from Box to a Google Doc folder, which I have the link of on here. You should all have gotten an invite. If you haven't and you're a data steward, please let me know. But please use this system. It is really important to use it so that we can, you know, store data sets there as soon as they are contributed. That's actually really helpful for us to know what our data holdings are. And then, you know, they can be accessed by working groups that are trying to update that nomenclature as well, because that work is ongoing. So please use that folder system. It actually is, you know, really helpful for us. In that folder system, you'll find a folder with your name on it. That's where you can store your data. That's where all of the contact info for all of the data stewards and, you know, most African paleoecologists working in Africa exists. It's where you will find updated APD taxonomy and nomenclature info. And then the new thing that I've added to that system are these like refresher or training tools. And so just a little bit more about those resources. So the new things that are, you know, sort of, you know, I'm introducing now and that are coming down the pipeline are that I've put a new folder into that Google Doc directory that's called training materials. This includes a variety of different things that's meant to help, you know, refresh and support people that might be, you know, even if it's just like a single data set or or you want to be involved in sort of like larger data mobilization over the summer, where there would be a lot of resources, or you're just kind of casually involved, like in a general sense, that you could go to, you know, get sort of reminded about the process. And so within there, like things I would point you to are, there are refresher documents. And there's a document called an APD data upload workflow. It goes through all of the steps. So adding data, validating taxon names, adding metadata, chronologies, all of that stuff. And if there's something missing from it, like I've kind of beta tested it with Alejandra, and she gave me some updates, but it's kind of still in like sort of quasi beta version. So if there are updates that you would like to make to it, you can let me know. I made some video tutorials about, you know, taking you through some of the more, you know, kind of finicky, troublesome steps that are easy to forget, like the setup of the TILIA document, the validating of taxon names, how to add a taxon name. That's actually a video that Jessica Blois made. What metadata needs to be added, and how to set up geochronological information. And then I'm skipping down a data or a bullet point on my spreadsheet here, but then I made those videos with an example data set, this ltkh3apd.tlx. Those example TILIA files are also in that folder. So you could, you know, like literally follow along with the videos if you wanted to. And then one thing that Alejandra suggested that we're, you know, sort of in the process of doing, but it's a living document, is that we have a Google Doc in that folder that's just called Common Errors. As she's been uploading data sets from the old African pollen database, you know, she's had a couple of weird errors, figured out how to fix them, and then, you know, marked the errors in that sheet, and then how she solved those, how she fixed those errors. And so you can add, if you come up with errors, you can add those, or you can use that as a reference. I'm in the process of, I'm going to set up an APD Slack channel within the Neotoma workspace on Slack. So as a data steward, you should already have access to the Neotoma workspace, I think. There's some documentation there as well, if you look at the Gen documentation channel. But I'm also going to create an APD channel within Neotoma so that, you know, if there's like other troubleshooting that needs to happen instantaneously, that could happen. But most importantly, like maybe like one of the things that I really, really wanted to communicate to everyone is that, you know, because my group at Penn State is going to be working regularly and intensively over the summer and into the fall, we are going to be having weekly meetings. And I really wanted to make, because we live in a virtual world now, I wanted to make these meetings open for anyone to join. And so that's what we've done. We've, you know, come up with a time. There will be Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So that should be 1 UTC. They will start on May 12th at that time. And so anyone who wants to join, even if you just want to talk about how to be involved, if you're a data steward and you have issues, or if you just want to, like, you know, reconnect and see what we're doing. If you need a refresher, or if you need training for yourself or a student, we also have some students that will be joining us as well from time to time. So you don't need to sign up. You know, you don't need to let me know in advance. You could if you wanted to. I like being in contact with you all, but you also could you could join every week. You could join from time to time. You could, you know, whenever it's useful to you. You know, I put the link down here, and I will also send out that link to the data steward email list as well. Okay, so that was a load of information. And so basically, as a summary, and I think at this point, you know, I'm going to kind of wind down. And if you guys have comments that you want to make, you know, verbally, feel free to like unmute yourself or make comments in the chat. You can also, if you think of something later, you can email me with feedback as well, but, you know, reach out at any time with ideas or interest. And remember that, you know, so we have a couple of like upcoming things, an APD council meeting, which will be scheduled at some time in the future for late 2021, but then this weekly data steward open meeting starting May 12th. So, you know, I mean, I would open up the floor to anyone who wanted to add anything, if there are questions or other tools or other ways to involve the community that I'm not thinking of. I, you know, am definitely really excited to you know, hear other people's ideas, because I know a lot of other people have much better ideas than I have. So I'll, you know, kind of just hang around, and if anyone has comments or questions.
I've got a comment.
Yeah.
Sarah, this is amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What a great set of resources, and that I'm with Gemma on, you know, you feel so rusty after being locked at home during COVID, and this is a great way to get us moving. So can you maybe be more specific about what you mean by data mobilization?
So yeah, so what we're going to be working on this summer, my Penn State group, is that Eric had been working on trying to like validate and upload all of the old APD sites, and he probably got through about a handful, about a dozen or so, and so we're going to now be working over the summer to try to make another dent in uploading the old APD sites. If anyone is interested in helping with that work, like that would be really helpful, because there are 288 of them, and so we will sort of slowly chip away at them.
If I can get a certain R function working, I would be happy to help.
That's your bottleneck right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the function basically works, but I should test it. And if I can get it operational, that's a good time frame to test it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that would be really helpful. And then once the standalone site is online, then we'll have the rest of the new APD data sets as well, that, you know, we'll start working on validating and uploading as well. And so we've been talking with some of the people at Neotoma about the opportunity to maybe use, like, develop a bulk uploader that could upload, you know, many sites at once, but that is still down the pipeline a little bit. So I think, you know, the plans for right now is to kind of just, like, you know, work the summer on getting up as many of the extremely, like, high quality sites from the old APD as possible at the moment.
Sarah, I'm on. Do you want me to, like, just mention something about the bulk uploader?
That would be really great. Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, so some of you may know that we're working on a new version of the R package. One of the goals of that is to enable it to be used directly for uploads as well, so that we can do some automation, especially of, like, large sets of data. And part of that has been building this bulk uploader, where basically we're going to upload things in chunks. So do all the publications, do all the taxa, do sort of all the reference tables, and then allow people to basically add in site data, data set information, and all the associated information. It's been more challenging than we expected, I think, is one of the things. And part of that is because Tilia is really good at providing that interactive experience where you can sort of look at two things and say, this is the one I want, this isn't the one I want. Where in an R package where you're sort of at the command line, it's less well suited to that. But we have been working with a bunch of vertebrate fauna data, and we're getting there. The publication tool is pretty much done, and we're just finishing that up. And then the next two things are contacts and taxa. And meanwhile, Socorro Dominguez, who may or may not be on the call, I can't see all the participants, but she's been working on the other part of this, which is really building out that R package to both have, for those of you who have used it traditionally, both have the get methods, which are getting things from the API, but now adding set methods, which would basically be like, I am creating a site from my local data and adding it into that Neotoma structure. So that's where we're at.
I guess with that, Simon, like, is there, I guess one of the things I've always been curious about is, like, is there a limit to, like, how many sites you could upload at once, or does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, there isn't, and that's the thing, right? And so we had been limited by Tilia, and that's not like no aspersions on Tilia at all. I think one of the goals here is that we want to, with this bulk uploader and with the Neotoma package, we want to allow people to basically construct these objects locally from Excel or from whatever data input they want to use. And so whether that is importing it from another database, importing it from lipid files, whatever, and then basically having then a set of sites, a set of data sets within those sites, being able to upload that all at once. And so if you have 15 sites and you've got that information, you should be able to upload it all. Functionally, it would upload things one at a time, but the idea of the package is to be able to support like a whole set of them and upload them to Neotoma with the validation and stuff.
Okay. And I guess another thing I was curious about is that would there be the capacity for like any data steward could do that? It wouldn't be something where like they would have to send it to me or to you or to something like.
No, so we would use like a token system where basically some people may have used our packages in the past where you have like a secret key basically. And so you would have an R script that would load that data in, and basically there is a variable that you would use that would be your Neotoma steward name and your Neotoma steward password, and that would get passed up as part of the function. So before you would actually upload the data, it would just check and say, is this person a valid steward? And if they are, it would allow those things to pass up. So
great. Well, thanks, Simon. Yeah, that's really exciting, and we're really interested in using it if possible at some point in the future.
Yeah, and there is, I think, yeah, so there is a channel in the Neotoma Slack, and I pasted a link to the Neotoma Slack in the chat if people want to join it. And I've seen people have already joined it, but there is a channel for the bulk uploader. And so right now it's been focused on this mammal work. I've been testing it out on some of the actual raw Neotoma data, because what we want is, because what we want to be able to do is have this work on a broad diversity of data. And so if people want to join the Slack, join that channel, and help us out, that would be great.
Okay, great. Thanks, Simon. Yeah, okay. So I have gotten a few emails from people that want to be added to the African Paleoecology email list, which if I've responded to you in the chat privately, then I have your information and I will email you as soon as I'm done here. And if there is anyone else who has questions or comments about that, I'm glad to hear people have gone on to join the Slack channel. That's awesome. And I'll probably send around an email with more information about this later as well. In any case, I think like if there's not a lot of people chomping at the bit to talk more about this kind of stuff, it was mostly meant to sort of be like a big update for everybody. I will, adjourn the session and just thank everybody for sticking with us through all of the awesome talks that everybody gave. Thanks to Will for being an awesome co-chair. It was fun organizing this with you. And to Suzette, who was like in the background doing all the stuff that nobody knew anyone was doing. And, to Jack and the other organizers as well for allowing us to reconnect like this in a very special way.
Yeah, and well done to you, Sarah. I mean, I think all this session really shows the practical stuff that you're doing to take on this legacy. And yeah, standing on Eric's giant shoulders is hard all of us. But I think this is a really great great initiative, and I think we can make some real progress with this. And I think I'm kind of like, we've got 60, nearly 70 people in this workshop here, so I think that really shows like that the community is there, and hopefully we can mobilize stuff and really make some progress. So I think a lot of kudos to you for taking this initiative and really building the next steps for this. So yeah, well done you.
Thanks. So I think from a more logistical standpoint, then we've got North America that's going to be starting in about 10 minutes or so. Is that correct? Or the Americas?
The full Americas.
Full Americas. Okay. And have we passed off co-host duties in a way that's going to be seamless?
Yeah,
so you can first stop the recording. Then it is just like an African session recording, and then me and Buzz take over for the Americas one.